Singled out again, cause you're not down with the latest trends. It's a choice you must make, stand behind it. Thinking on the move, why they all talk down to you? Just let your actions speak, there you'll find it. Stand up, you only get one life. It's everything you do, and everything you say that makes you Susan Calloway. Why are you always down? Take your head up off the ground. You know you're Susan Calloway. Emotions come and go, but loneliness is all you know. You wanna run and hide, it's not the answer. Crying life away, it shouldn't matter what they say. Society's corrupt, a public cancer. Stand up, you only get one life. It's everything you do, and everything you say that makes you Susan Calloway. Why are you always down? Take your head up off the ground. You know you're Susan Calloway. No one's ever there at time you need a friend to care. You give up all your hope, it's a disaster. Some things you'll never have. Stop feeling down and being sad. Welcome to real life. There's your answer. Stand up. You only get one life. It's everything you do and everything you say that makes you Susan Calloway. Why are you always down? Take your head up off the ground. You know you're Susan Calloway. Susan Calloway. Everything you do and everything you say that makes you Susan
All right, we are back and we are live. Feet to the fire. I'm your host, James Othianchik, the Black Knight of Talk Radio. I'm back and we're live. And hey, we're going to, a couple of moments, we're going to have Dr. Rita Louise, who has been a longtime guest over the years, back to the earliest year, 2004. I dug up her earlier show, so it's been around a while. And she's still not only alive and kicking, but doing excellent. We'll be there in a second. I want to mention one thing off here. I posted this on the website, but I haven't said anything on the live channels. Let me get this set up here. Oh, I heard a beep. Please don't do anything. Oh, it's my printer. It's my printer going off. So anyway, my mom's birthday was February the 4th, and I had an idea to write a letter to Donald Trump and tell him, because she's a long-time Democrat all her life. And she voted for Bernie. She wrote him in because she was watching the regular media and she looked at, Trump is what they said. So after living through the first year and seeing what they've done to him and seeing what he's done, she voted for him in 2020 and was disappointed like the rest of us. Well, I had an idea that maybe I could tell this story to their campaign and maybe send them a card. Get a pre-form letter would have been fine, just something. So it would have been nice for her. Well, get a registered letter from the Trump letterhead, typed and actually signed by Trump with his, he's got his ink pen or that felt pen that got right through the back of it, wishing her happy birthday, and that was pretty awesome. So I brought it to her, and that's her holding it up, and I don't think I've seen her smile like that and that deeply in years. So kudos to Donald Trump for doing that, and it really made her day. She's got it up on the wall, and she wanted me to give a copy of it so that she could show people. So that was really nice that she did that. Now, one other thing about Spreaker is quitting live shows for us people. If you paid like a year in advance, they're going to let you run out your contract, but I do it monthly, so no more live shows to Spreaker. I'm looking at ways to work around that somewhere else, because I like to do just audio, unless I have a guest with a camera. I mean, I don't want to sit in and talk in the camera. It's just me talking. But so I'm going to look into that, and we will find out what I'm going to do. Meanwhile, we're doing this on YouTube. I'm going to upload it to BitChute and to Rumble. I'm going to try doing Rumble. I just didn't want to try doing a new Steve with a live guest, because that could be bad. So speaking of live guest, I'm going to bring this up here. This is how I met Dr. Rita years ago. I actually got to visit her. I drove my truck through Texas and spent the day with her. Officially, may I add, autographed. I read this book, and it was like, you know what? I came up with the phrase, you are the most significant influence in your life. I got that. I don't know the quote from there, but that's something that I derive from it, that the choices you make are the most important thing. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going around the world, but the choices that you make affect your future. And had her on the show. We did a interview, and I have the links that I'll put below. And since then, what a great relationship. She's the only guest that I would call a friend, because I've talked to her many times just on the phone. She has, I've also talked to her professionally. She's a medical intuitive and good, a psychic. I'll use the word psychic in my qualification was she gets good information, as opposed to like you read in the paper or, and I've personally, and had some family members have dealt with her. So she's one of the 2 psychics that I allow on this show. She is not only does that, she does a medical intuitive class where not only is she a medical intuitive, but she can have you be a medical intuitive. And that's there. She's done a number of books all over the place. She's done videos. She does seminars. I mean, it's like, she did a radio show at first, the Just Energy Radio. It went on for years. Did Soul Healer Moment on my show for a couple of years, I think, where she would write a little audio column, we'll call it, video audio column, and it was very helpful. And he has not been on the show in a long time. So once I got my act together with this, I wanted to have her on here. Soulhealer.com is her website. I'll have a whole bunch of links I'll have below when I do this at the end, with everything that you ever wanted to see or know about Dr. Rita. Let me bring her in here. Let me see. I got this audio on. Can you hear me? And you're live, Dr. Rita.
I'm live. Oh. Hey, it's the Black Night of Talk Radio. Are you hearing me?
Yeah, I am hearing you. I would like somebody in the chat room, just for my own peace of mind, to say that things were going well. So I got the chat room is up at YouTube. And so I really like as far as I know, everything's going fine. So I had to turn up my way of hearing you, but we're fine. So I do have something to play for you, which I think will work.
I'm a little scared, but go ahead.
This is something that I put together back when you would be on the show, and I thought about it. I remembered it. I entered in Rita, from lovely Rita Meter Raid. And
I remember when you did that. I remember that.
So I dug that up, and unfortunately I couldn't feed that back to you somehow. But anyway.
But I remember it, and it made me smile and laugh.
It is. I'm glad to see you back. I mean, you're amazing. Not only is she doing all this stuff, she's on her 2nd house restoration. It's like, how do you find the energy to do all this stuff?
Actually, I'm going to give a real answer. I only really do stuff that I want to do. I work for myself. I see however many clients I want to see. Me time to work on a book if spirit moves me to work on a book. But I just finished here. I'm going to do a little visual like you. My new book, dang, it was me all along. And so I'm like, well, you're just going to be working on promoting that and doing interviews and whatever, whatever. So, you're not expending your time writing. So what are you going to do? And it was like, well, maybe I'll go get a house, a project house. That's what I call it, the project house. And this house that really needed a lot of work, but wasn't outside the scope of what I could navigate and get people to do, came available, and I'm doing it. And it's fun, and I like it.
There you go. I mean, I guess that's the key to thing. I have not achieved that in my life. I seem to be doing more things that I don't want to survive, but I guess that's from made my inappropriate choices, and here I am. But I am kind of getting back on fire here with this system. It's based on Linux, and so I don't know. I'm feeling the burn to get back into things. So how if I can ask about your book, I haven't read it, but I'm guessing it sounds to me that it's kind of, I don't know if the word is an extension, expansion, cousin to the Avoiding Cosmic 2x4. Is that fair?
It can be. So when I wrote the book or was writing the book, it was an extension to my last book, which is called The Dysfunctional Dance of the Empath and Narcissist. And the reason I wrote the book was, and I have to give a little background. And see, we've never talked about that book either. So I had 2 relationships before, ended a relationship, and the word narcissist came into my awareness and what that was, and realized that the majority of my relationships, both personal and romantic, were narcissistic people going back to my childhood. So I ended up doing a deep dive into that whole dynamic of the empath, the sensitive person, and the narcissist, because the empath wants to give, and the narcissist wants to take. So it's a very unholy union. And so the book ends, the Dysfunctional Dance book ends with a message of hope. I think I have solved the world's problems about narcissistic relationships, and I'm never going to get in another one. And I talk about this new guy that I'm seeing, and it turned out to be a shit show. And get rid of him. It was at the very end of COVID. My business wasn't doing well. I wasn't doing well. I wasn't happy. And I didn't know what to do. I mean, I was looking for a day job because I was that scared. And really all I wanted was to be happy and experience inner peace, and that means like you have enough money to pay your bills and whatever. But I didn't know if it was possible. I didn't know if it was something that you could pursue, or if your personality was your personality, and if you're cranky and complain a lot and have these inner dynamics going on, can be changed. And so that was where my deep dive went, was what's going on inside of me, and can I change it? Can I be happy? Can I sit there and become way less reactive to and produce a lot less negative thinking in my life, which seemed to be the root cause of everything, was negative thinking. And I discovered it was possible. And so that just kind of took me off into this whole dive into myself. But what I found was the ideas and concepts that are in this book really do translate to the 2x4 book also, because if you're experiencing illness, physical, emotional, or spiritual, it also is what you need to do to change what's going on inside. So many people, I'm going to change that. We are not taught to look inside. We are not taught to investigate our own inner dynamic. We expect other people to bend and move to us. And I'm not saying that we should bend over and comply to them, but we we're not taught to look out for our best interest and put what about me into the equation, because usually we're always going, well, they don't really want to do it, but maybe I want to do it. And then I have to honor myself and say, well, you know what? This is something that I want to do. So I'm going to do what makes me happy.
Oh,
Bam.
damn. Yeah, it sounds like I might be reading that book. See, because, what's the difference? If I could just start popping out questions here on this as we go along, is what's the difference between negativity and, I don't know what the word is. Is it fatalism? I mean, for example, I see what's going on in the country and the world, not looking good, right? And I haven't been able to come up with a rational, reasonable way out in mass. Now, I'm in the middle of this. I can't do anything about it, really, but I still want to have peace and we'll call it, happiness within this area. So I don't know where I'm being negative, let's say, or it's an oppressive environment, or both. Like, maybe you can.
I'm going to say both, but I think, one of the main tenets of this book is about paying attention to what you're thinking about. So if you find yourself obsessing about, well, what about, okay, so the main forms of negative thinking, let's get basic here. The main forms of negative thinking are anxiety, worrying, so you're worrying about the future. It's like, oh, are we going to get into a war with Russia? Or am I going to die from COVID? Or, that whole what if in the future. So that's one giant piece. And then the other one is rumination, where you think about stuff that happened to you. So you get into a conversation with someone and they piss you off, and now you're thinking about it for days. Like, I'm an excellent ruminator. You sit there and you say something and I will think about it for days. And then there is what I call, that I threw into this pile, our inner critic, where we allow our self-talk to tell us that we suck, or that we're not competent, or we're too fat, or I can't do this, or, whatever that personal negative thinking, because our inner critic will say things to us that we would never say out loud to any other person on the planet, but we'll say it to ourselves. And so once you start becoming aware, it's like, oh, I'm worried about, like, and okay, so I'm just going to use this. Like, I'm not like worried about it, but it's kind of sitting in my brain. So I used to have a freezer full of meat, and cabinets full of food, and not that I'm like a total prepper person, but I like to have my bases covered, and it's getting a little thin. And so it's kind of like, okay, it's back on my mind, but I keep myself in check about not obsessing about it. It's like, okay, well, let me make a note, like this week I'm going to get more green beans, and just work toward it without having that be where my energy is vibrating. Did that make sense?
Yeah, it seems to me like I could use the word an analytical detachment while acknowledging it's there, not trying to deny it, not trying to explain it away. Okay, well then, if that's a problem, let's work it out. And
Yeah.
yeah, I think where I was.
I mean,
listening to
because if you're being proactive about it, at least you're doing something, and you're not just in this state of nothing and worry.
I think if I can listen to your list there, what strikes with me is the first one, because I'm looking out, trying to, I would do plan for this and that. Like, okay, this could happen and that can happen. And when I do that, my mind of how to cover all the bases, I can't do it. I mean, I've come up with cameras for the house because we have some, talk about narcissists. We got a convicted one across the street. I got cameras on the house, and, there's the old fashioned Second Amendment and all this stuff. But someone throws a Molotov cocktail on my roof, I can't do anything about it. No matter what I can come up with, there's a way around it. And that part gets me down. It's like no matter what I do. But then what I try to do is go like, well, what are the odds? What are the more likely stuff, and prepare for that, and then just leave the rest to God, fate.
And see, and I've kind of shifted my process from that thinking mode to more listening to spirit mode and allowing my intuition to drive the show. Because, and I feel like it's my intuition going, oh, well, you need to do this. And it's like, oh, okay, you know, and I'll just do it versus trying to figure it out, and maybe, I've gotten to the place where I've just taken a back seat and it's kind of like, what's ever going to happen is going to happen. Even though there's this little part of my mind, I was listening to Glenn Beck. I have talk radio on in my car. And so he's on first thing in the morning while I'm driving to the gym. And so he was going, well, June through November, maybe January might be kind of a crap show. So, you might want to be prepared, and for the most part, I'm pretty prepared. I feel like I'm a little bit lacking because I've been not restocking, but it's kind of like I'm just taking it as advice and not allowing it to control where my mind is. And when I find that my mind is being controlled by it, I have to stop. And I'm going to give a different example. So I've got this project, this house project, which I'm acting as the general contractor. So I'm dealing with the plumber and the electrician and the builder guy and looking for cabinets and rah, rah, rah. And my brain has been all over the place, but it's not negative thinking, but it's all over the place. And I'm not experiencing inner peace because I'm all over the place. And once I realized that, the last few weeks, I've just have been really going, okay, calm brain, calm brain. And you need to just slow it down. You need to let it slow down and just have things move forward and trust that God's going to take care of us. And I'm going to give you an example. So my budget has totally gotten blown, totally gotten blown. And I was looking for a sink, and there was this one pedestal sink that I really liked. That it was $1,200. Well, needless to say, I wasn't getting any $1,200 sink, and I really didn't want to spend $400 for a sink. And and so I'm in this period of like, slow down. You need to, like, stop the chronic thinking and breathe and whatever. And I go on Facebook Marketplace, and this woman has the pedestal sink that I want, that she took out of a house that was in the master bedroom in perfect condition with the faucets for $75. All I had to do is drive to go get it.
Wow.
But when you slow it down and you're in that calm vibration, that's when spirit can work through you and make things happen and give you those little reminders, like, hey, why don't you go look on Facebook Marketplace? Maybe there'll be a sink there, and bam, there was a sink.
Yeah. I know, it's really great for me personally to hear this stuff, because I know what you're saying, and I'm agreeing, and I could see myself back in my times when I did that and didn't do it, didn't do it, and I could see that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm glad to hear you say that.
Well, one of the things that I've really advocated is that, most people pull those tools out when they're in the middle of adversity, when there's something going on and they're like, oh my God, my life is falling apart. And then they pull the tools out and go, well, they don't work, or they're not working for me. And I, in the last couple of years, and this is where I've seen the biggest shift, have made it just part of my regular practice. Like, I take the dog out, he goes in the yard, but I don't have a fenced yard, so he's on a tether, and I'll sit outside, on the porch and whatever, and he'll be doing his business, and I'll spend that little bit of time just taking the dog out, working on a breathing practice, or doing some tapping, or doing something to recenter me, to refocus me. So it's not even like I'm spending hours and hours, but I'm doing it every day. Kind of like going to the gym, I'm doing it every day. So then when I'm having like a really bad brain day, those tools are going to be more effective because my body is used to responding in a certain way, and it might not make it perfect, but I bet it would. All right. I know it's better, or I have seen that I recover faster than I would have. Like this past week, I was supposed to go get a test done at the hospital. And I've had it done twice, just an ultrasound. I've had it done twice before. They wanted $45. So they call me from the hospital to get me in, blah, blah, blah. And she goes, it's going to be $400. And I'm like, okay, that's like 1,000% freaking increase on the last couple times I've had it done. Wow, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, well, if it's $400, I'm not getting the test done. And so she goes, well, you need to call the insurance. The insurance gives me some information. I end up going to the hospital. But in the meantime, after that, I get a cease and desist letter from somebody who has a medical intuitive training website. And okay, I did take maybe, and I don't even think it was this many, 50 words from her page, but it all wasn't like one paragraph. It was like part of a sentence here, part of a sentence there, and integrated it in my wording, and they were all highlighted. 50 words, a cease and desist letter on top of the $400, on top of like all this other crap that was going on. And if it was me a couple of years ago, I would have been having a freaking meltdown, just a meltdown. And I'm like, I'll go fix the webpage. It's like 50, and I just I was cranky as all get out. But and I don't have the issue sitting there going 400%. I was on the phone with insurance for 2 hours, 2.5 hours. And then you know what I paid for the damn test? $45.
Ah.
Because nobody wants to, but it's endemic in society. The hospital don't want to tell you because they don't know what insurance is going to pay. Insurance don't want to tell you because they don't know what the hospital is going to charge, like what they're going to bill them for. I'm like, well, whatever they bill you for, you're only going to pay so much. Well, we won't know until they send the invoice. And I'm like, look, you guys need to get on the phone together and decide what this is going to be, because, you're just giving me the runaround here, and I'm not a happy girl. And I'm a pain in the ass. And I'm not paying $400, and I will sit on this phone for 3 days to not pay $400.
That's good. That's one of the positive traits with Lucinda's are a wherewithal to do that. I get that. I hear that, and I go, I'd rather. That's a lot of money now, but I'd rather lose a certain amount than just have to sit and deal with that. Because to me, it's just like pounding on my head. Because the people are like, oh, I'm sorry, sir, and blah blah blah. I can't deal with that. But
well, thank God for speakerphones. And cell phones where you can like just put it on speaker and walk around. But no, I have no issue. This brought up a story. This is years ago. So when my kids were young, so my husband and I had a family plan, and one of the kids was on the family plan. He was the only one that had a phone. And so we upgraded our phones thinking, it was a family plan. So we got upgraded, but his phone didn't get, I don't know. He wasn't on the family plan anymore. And we got a $400 and something, $600 cell phone bill because of text. And I'm like, but we were on unlimited text. Oh, well, he's not on your family plan. So they adjust it. And I'm like, but there's a $50 difference. And so, of course, they're going, no, it says right here, this is number. And I'm like, but if you take this number and subtract this number, it does not equal that number. No, it says this number. Finally, I get a supervisor on the phone. And I'm like, look, can you take out a calculator and take this number and subtract that number and tell me that there's not a $50 difference in price? And he goes, hold on. And apparently he got a calculator and actually did the math, but that's something. And I'm bringing the story up because this is two stories of what is so chronic in our society right now is nobody wants to do the work. No one wants to like apply any brain power to what I consider simple, logical tasks that should be part of their job.
Oh boy, are you hitting? Are
Can
you?
of worms, huh?
You're hitting a note. I mean, I'm seeing this everywhere where it's like I feel like I'm some kind of super genius, right? That I come in and I go, it's so simple, blah blah blah, and then in the look on her face, and I know I'm not a genius, and I know this stuff I'm saying about is relatively obvious, but I get that across the board though. I mean, it's kind of disheartening because I'm thinking like we're worrying about World War III and all this stuff, but we're just falling apart internally. I just I just can't.
Yeah, like they can't make change or basic things. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, what we're talking about, Dr. Rita Louise here, who has done like a million different things. I just happened to look up here. Let me switch to the web page. This is the first date that you were here, November 7th, 2004. Now
Wow.
that's I still have the old web page up. That's one of those you could still see the old shows stuff on there. But there's a search engine. There's a little search thing in there, so you can actually search for her name and a bunch of stuff comes up. It's not as good as it used to be because I haven't updated it with the Google codes. But speaking of books and things you're doing and all that, I didn't mention that you were on Ancient Aliens. Wasn't it a few times? Was that what your book on the I'm getting I'm getting lost. I got the cover in my face and I can't say it.
Like the man-made or the Stepping Out of Eden book.
Yeah, man-made. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I don't know
So
if
I
that's
was only kind of like in the background on Ancient Aliens, so I actually didn't have a talking role, but people recognize me. I got emails from people and they're like, "Hey, we saw you on Ancient Aliens." And I'm like, "Ooh." But I was on Gaia TV, Ancient Civilizations #4 and Ancient Civilizations #5.
Oh, there you go.
That was cool.
Yeah, because you also have videos out and stuff. I was aware of Icon, but I saw you had a bunch of other stuff. So I mean, soulhealer.com is the way to go here to her website because you can have services from the intuitive counseling as well as healing and as well as the training. So I mean, it's all there in her books and her movies and films. Now I'm going to have to go look at some of these stuff because I wasn't aware of these, so they're pretty interesting. Yes, I like your topics. See, you're a thinker. I mean, you're not a
Apparently,
geek. You're cool, if I can use the phrase, but you're also deep thinking, and I like that.
apparently. Well, you don't think of yourself that way. I mean, I just think like, well, this is what I do and this is how I think, and I really don't think anything of it. But then there are people that are just flabbergasted by all of this, and I'm like, it's just me. Don't mean to be intimidating because it's still just me, and it's always just going to be me.
But how you're doing things, like for example, the man-made. I did read that you shared the script with me when you were writing a book. It is a while ago, so I'm not going to be able to pop it in. But what I liked about your theory of thinking on this, you just went in saying, "Wait, we got a lot of things that correlate here all throughout time. You got different gods, different things. Are like, oh, there's really no way to communicate between the two, and is it?" And you went in there with like, I don't care what the answer is. I want to find out what the correlation is. And I don't know, there are so many people who go in with the conclusion already designed and to look for evidence for it. And that's the one thing I did in my life was just to go by lack of contradiction. That's my little phrase there. And I liked how you did. Did you come up with some takeaways from that book in terms of
And
conclusions?
so one of the things that I found um, in many people that write like ancient mystery stuff is and I hate to say this, so no mean cards or letters, anybody, but they're always looking to either prove or disprove the Bible. That's kind of their shtick. And when I went to write that book, I took the Bible, not that I really wanted to incorporate Bible stuff, and I put that over there. And at that time, Zachariah Sitchin was hot. And I put him over there because I didn't want to prove or disprove his theories. I just wanted to see what the literature held, and wrote the book, came to my conclusions. Um, at one point, because I sit there and I talk about the gold, because that was Zachariah Sitchin's main thing was, the Anunnaki came here to get the gold for their planet and blah, blah, blah. And there is this, and for immortality. And so there was this thread of immortality and some kind of a substance, and, but I could never find the gold as, in the way that he described it. How's that? Because you see the gold in like the pharaoh when they die, they have a golden death mask, and so it was very important, and I'm hitting this terrible, and so I finally went and opened up my Sitchin books looking for his references to gold because I was at a loss. And I discovered that the premise of all of his books were based on the gold, and he based his premise of the gold on, okay, so the watery deep is the word Abzu in Sumerian, and in South Africa the word Zuab means gold. And so, and in Sumerian you could switch the letters around, it still meant the same thing. And then the pictogram in cuneiform looked like a drill bit on the side. And based on those two pieces of information, he concluded that the Anunnaki came looking for gold. And there is no other support that I could find to support that concept at all. And anybody that wrote about it all took his material and ran with it. So that was a little bit annoying. But what was the good part, on the other hand, was I finished writing it. And one of the things that I found, and it was very consistent in myth, and I probably am screwing this up, but on the third day, God created the plant life and whatever, the flora and fauna. And then on the fourth day, he put the sun, the moon, and the stars in the sky. So that's what the Bible tells you, which doesn't make any sense because how can you have plants without a sun? Mm-hmm. That don't work. However, you read myth around the world, and that is a very consistent theme, that there is this war that occurs and the earth is terraformed, and then the sun, the moon, and the stars are put in the sky. And so I found that very validating to the Bible. That's something that seems so inconsistent, and why would they write it that way, actually correlated directly with myth.
I guess it doesn't say that there wasn't light. Perhaps there was a more of a universal glow, and then then it was consolidated. Who knows, right?
Well, I mean, the theory that I took was that plant life came onto the surface of the earth before any kind of other life came from underneath the water. And so if you're a fish or a reptile or something that's under the water, the sun and the moon and the skies wouldn't be in the sky because you're underwater. And so now they actually are coming onto the land. So that was kind of it kind of, to me, placed it in an epoch in time also. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah, because I'm not attached. One thing that happened to me going through my life, I had a little area where things really got shook up. I got the tower card in my life, and I reshuffled everything, and I said, okay, wait a minute. All right, we're going back to zero. Nope. And I put it all together, and I stopped trying to fit these pieces in. So I don't look at the stuff in like the Old Testament, for example. I don't look at it as literal. I'm not against it being literal. I won't say it is, but I'm looking at more of trying to explain in terms that people could listen to. So technically, let's just take your take on it. Technically, that would be true if the day isn't literal, but the way it happened was that way. So yeah, I like that. I like that kind of relaxed approach. To me, it's got nothing to do with heaven and hell. It's got to do with just trying to figure out what these ancients wrote. And now, have you looked around?
Let me just make one piece of commentary. So there were 7 major epochs in history. You know what I mean? Or some number. And so if you sit there and you look at the verse, like in the beginning, God created light. Well, after the Big Bang, all there were photons in space. And so the whole everything was light. And so did they take these concepts that are going over millions of years and suck it down into some very simple verse for us to understand all this prehistory before the creation of mankind?
What also got me thinking in that area is Ian Lungold's work. He's passed away. He's been on the show too, about the 2012 and all that stuff. That whole Mayan calendar is based on these advances. Now, in the beginning, it were longer because it took longer and so on. So it's pretty interesting to be able to put that together. But I keep getting shadowed by what's going on in the present, and so I used to be more talkative on these coffee cable type philosophical discussions, but now it's like, am I going to work next week? So it kind of like takes a lot of that out of it. But what about? Well, go ahead.
All right, I got more. More. I think it's really interesting, this period that we're going through right now, because, and this was a while back, that it really made people choose where they wanted to go and what they wanted to believe, and it has really made people, and I'm going to say, more self-aware, like those who choose. And I really feel like there's an awakening happening. But also, it's kind of like somebody had posted this picture of like somebody walking up a set of stairs, and over the edge of the stairs is this scary monster. And the person just looks at it like, and I feel like we're kind of getting this opportunity to have all of these things that could scare the crap out of us, which usually screws us up. Our fear is usually the biggest limiter, that we're just looking at it and going, oh, yeah. Months ago when that volcano went off in Iceland, and there was like all kinds of stuff going on politically on the planet. And I go to the gym and they're talking about this volcano, and I'm like, well, and a volcano. Here, let's throw in a volcano. Because I think all of this is making us not be scared, and not being scared is huge. It's huge for us to be whole and be happy, because usually when we're worried, there's something we're scared about.
No, I look my focus on, I'm here for life for a certain time to do some things or whatever, and then move on. Mm-hmm. So I'm not interested in staying alive in as much as living right, doing my thing here right, because we're going to go somewhere else onward, and this is going to be a memory. So I'm not worried about living, but and I had this battle, like I mentioned, about working next week, and actually I got to say it's been pretty good. I got to think the way that's going to accompany me, it's good. The guy who's running it is good, and everything's fine. So I literally went there. I didn't know where to go after my company failed, and I said, God, give me a sign. Right there, a guy comes by who never talked to me before, who Hispanic, broken English, says, where are you going to go next? And I said, I don't know. He goes, go to Innovative. They are the best. And I walked, he drove away, and I went, okay, there's the sign. And I did, and it was a great thing. But what?
So not working for Spirit anymore?
No, they sold, and the place that bought them, there was like 1,000 red flags. So I ended up selling my truck, and I went to be an hourly guy, because the benefits and pay of having your old truck were down dramatically. Now it still pays more, and guys still kept their trucks. I also looked at it as peace of mind. I mean, I don't have to worry about the truck anymore. Mm-hmm. And I can't put a dollar value on that, but boy, was that a peaceful let go. Just to, come into work, do my thing, and go home, and that's all I got to do. So
Hmm.
that was a
Good.
loss in money, raise in peace, and but anyway, if I could cut to, I've been reading a lot of stuff about Tartaria. I think if I'm saying that right, the so-called advanced civilization that was right before us up until the late 1800s when the Rockefellers and whatnot decided to erase that whole history. And I didn't think a lot above it, but I've been seeing these pictures showing up of all these advanced buildings and stuff, saying that all these spires were actually electronic receivers to get electricity. Of course, their electricity needs back then were rather modest. But I don't know if you ever looked into this Tartaria, if I'm saying it
I
right.
have never ever heard of that, especially from like the 1800s. Um,
It goes back before that, 16, 17, but like if you
right.
look back in pictures, apparently we can just catch the end of the failing, like the World Trade, the World Fair, and all the
Hmm.
stuff they were building, all the electricity they needed for that event. They didn't have big, power generators. Where did it come from? And so you got this little echo at the edge. And then as you go back, you see some of these older buildings when they got the pictures from the early 1800s, when they started having cameras. You got these spires, and you got what looks to be like antenna or something up there, and then you see the modern version where it's all trimmed off. I don't know. I was just asking.
I mean, that's kind of interesting. I haven't ever seen that, but my only commentary is that we could never reproduce the stuff that they did starting, around the Renaissance. I was listening to some show and they were like, well, has anybody ever figured out how to make a flying buttress again? And I mean, some of the churches and some of the buildings that have been made, I mean, I can't even imagine. I think that's why I have just this giant fascination with, historic homes and stuff and preserving them because they don't do this anymore. I mean,
No.
not that any of the houses that I've gotten have been, like these giant, super fancy Victorian mansion-y kind of things, but they still have their charming character that they're not cardboard. And
Right. And I
they
look at
never
like
would
the,
make it
the
like this.
I look at like the carvings of Michelangelo and stuff, and the great detail, the veins. And I saw a carving by somebody who had veils, a woman with veil on. You could see it. That's marble, for crying out loud.
Mhm.
I can't even imagine. I could just see doing it and then going like, oh, well, I got to start all over again. I don't know. There's a theory that they were able to soften it, and that concept was kept quiet, and the masters
Mhm.
were shown it, and it's lost now or whatever. So I mean, that to me makes it at least it's believable that they may have been able to do that.
Well, but it's also like in Egypt, in some of the tombs and stuff, or some of the monuments, they have all that hieroglyphic carving. And it's like, well, what if somebody like put the wrong letter? Or what, you know what I mean? It's not like you can sit there and like put wood putty in it or a little
Yeah,
bondo and fix it and recarve it. So I don't know how they did it
unless they
and
got a
don't
pet.
know how they had the mindset and patience to be able to do it.
Look for the petroglyph for Bondo would be the good thing to look. And what about Petra? That city? That's they carved it inside a building. I,
Hmm.
I don't know. To me it's fascinating. That's why I think there's something to with these people. I mean, it's like people in the flat Earth. They say stuff, okay, fine, and there's the people with Tartarias, everything, and they have these groups, and they're all called I don't know quacks or whatever. But looking into that old architecture and stuff, especially you get back far, there's something going on there. I don't. It doesn't mean aliens. Everything
No.
is aliens. If we can't fix it now, aliens did it. I think we were just we knew stuff that we don't know now. Whether that was intended or not, I have no idea.
Well, I mean, I think that there's a whole bunch of stuff that we don't know now. I think it's interesting. You see these like survival shows on TV, like not that I watch them, but like Naked and Afraid, and they send these two people out and they don't have any clothes, and they have like a thing of water and a knife, and and they have to survive. But they're only there for like a couple of days, so if they don't eat for a couple of days, it's no big hair off their back. But if they send anybody that is a city person and just threw them into that environment, they wouldn't do very well.
Hmm. Well, we might be thrown into that environment, but that's I digress.
Hmm.
Yeah. So what? How are you looking at the future? Have you ever? I mean, we were talking about this, and you're living day by day or short term, and that's cool. But have you ever kind of went out there with the so-called end times and all this stuff, Antichrist and all these types? Have you kind of looked at that for your own personal?
So I mean, I don't really do the Antichrist thing, although there's been some stuff that I would actually, I mean, you know me pretty well, that I would actually go, huh, okay, well, maybe there is something to it, and maybe I'm just a little bit wrong. Um, I also I don't look. I don't look
Mm,
because I feel like it would just be supposition on my part. I feel like, and this is something, so I do a live stream on Thursday nights. It's called Thursday Night Live with Dr. Rita Louise. And people have the opportunity to join the chat and get asked questions and get readings on air. And one of the topics that I've been talking about a lot, has really been about this whole mindfulness concept, but also about being about the energy on the planet. So it was not this past week, but the week before, and I was just sitting there going, because 2 weeks before that, the energy was really weird. And then, like, that Thursday afternoon, it just shifted. And it went from like, I feel like crap. All my friends feel like crap. We're all emotional. I'm crying. There's all this stuff going on, to I'm better by 4 o'clock that Thursday. It was really weird. And there were multiple people in the chat room that were like, yeah, 4 o'clock, I was better. And so fast forward 2 weeks, and it's just another horrendous energy week. So even though there's not anything all that exciting going on in my life, I'm experiencing all of these emotions, and experiencing this terror and experiencing this dread. And my goal in the whole thing is just to remain calm, to remain grounded, and I'm going to say it this way, and to hold space, and to not allow my emotional energy to get sucked into the whole thing, and and maybe do a bit of praying that it just doesn't become apocalyptic. I do feel like that is the possibility, but since I don't know, and it could go any way, you know, there's a lot of lying going on, and there's a lot of deceit going on, and there's a lot of stuff going on in back rooms that nobody knows what it's all about until they sneak it out the back door and try to slide it on you. Um, so it really makes it hard to plan for that, because who the hell knows? Who knows? And
right. Yeah.
so,
Right. And I don't. One of the things I've said is that throughout time, a lot of people said it was the latter days and Antichrist and all this stuff. And even in the Old Testament or New Testament writings, the Antichrist is already, the spirit's already here or whatever. I kind of look at their cycles. Like we get into a end time cycle, right? So you get to this point and what happens. I use an example of Jonah, right? Nineveh was going to be destroyed if they didn't do it. Jonah went and talked with them, and they changed, and it wasn't destroyed. I just took that as an example. And that was
mhm,
one city, though. And you have Sodom and Gomorrah, that's another location, and they didn't, and it happened. There's like cycles, but to me, what makes this one more unique is that it's a worldwide cycle now. It's not local. It's not a
mhm.
city. It's not a state. It's like everywhere. Now, people in the middle of small country isn't thinking about the Antichrist or end times, but they're trying to like stay alive. am I going to get water today? And so on, which kind of goes along. So that's the only thing that I'm looking at is that it's like, sure, it could pass, and a cycle will come around again. But the weapons that they have, the AI stuff, I don't know.
I mean, it's a little, but why I brought up that story, I used to do these planetary vibration readings every week. I would tap into the earth. And when I was preparing for that show, because I just had all of this nervous energy, like I was like internally shaking, which was annoying as hell. And I'm like breathing and tapping and meditating and doing all these things, and nothing was working. And I decided to tap into the energy on the planet, and it was just this one giant anxiety-filled, nervous, that I tapped into it for about 5 seconds and went, no, I don't even want to bring this in. It's calmed down since then, but what's going on the planet is cycling. It's sucking people into it. To me, the only way to make it through with any kind of sanity is to just hold space, work on myself, and it's not that I'm not there. And, because to sit there and say that it's going to be the end of the world, it's just me putting a story on it. No,
did you say hold space or fold?
Hold space.
Okay, I like the fold space part. I was wondering, how do you do that?
I only do that when I'm driving my car to Dallas. I fold space. It's kind of like, okay, let's make this 2-hour drive an hour.
There's a lady in the chat room, Sarah, who says, what, I guess they're hearing, there's a delay and they're hearing the, later days things. What do you run to when it all falls down, or what the tech? So like if it all falls down, you're just do you have some kind of a plan, or is it like you'll know at the time what to do, or how do you look at that?
So, I mean, I have 2 generators. I just bought a new one that will run on natural gas, because I have natural gas in my house, but it'll also run on propane and gasoline.
There you go.
I have food. I have a grill. I have cash. I have precious metals. You know what I mean? So not that I have like millions of dollars in precious metals, but I have some. So if the world freaking falls apart,
we'll all come to your house.
Be okay. I live in a brick house, and so short of like boarding up the windows, you ain't shooting anything through my walls.
There you go.
It's a brick house, not just outside brick. It's brick.
Yeah, the old Chicago buildings, they had the brick, would go around so that the brick wall is like this thick, full of brick.
That's my house. 18 inches of solid brick.
So I'm looking at the clock. Okay, we got because you got a time limit here. So is there something I've been throwing out stuff? Is there stuff you'd like to put out there or something before I talk you to death?
I don't know. You've been actually very good in letting me talk a lot.
Oh. Yeah. Well, go ahead.
I think the biggest thing, the biggest message that I want to bring to the table, especially in these turbulent times, is really about taking the time and doing what you need to do to try to find that peace, and not worry. Because when we worry, all we're doing is taking our worst thoughts, and I have a pretty vivid imagination. And so you could tell me something and I could take it to like the worst possible place and put it there. And I just assume not, because it's not worth it. One tool that I learned is, what are the facts? There's what's going on, and then there's the story. And so what I know is going on is that it is weird out there, and I don't know what's going to happen. And so based on that, I'm going to be prepared for, not the rest of my life, but at least for now, and have that be okay, and not try to figure it out, because, we don't know. We just don't know.
Right. And what I've come up with, and listening to you talking here, it's kind of like, my thing is like, I have the faith that I have in my spiritual relationship with God, right? is that if I can keep myself open to the voice, I mean, not literally, but you know what I mean, I'll know what I need to know when I need to know it. And I've had proof of
Exactly.
that. I've had proof of that. Now, I every so often I get a little nervous, but I keep remembering, go, wait a minute. This happened to me. This happened to me. I saw no way out, and a way opened up, and I worked out. I just keep that to, keep the crazy guy down.
But that's also goes right hand in hand with what I'm saying. When you sit there and your brain isn't occupied trying to figure it all out, and you just sit there and you trust that the universe, or you trust that God is going to take care of you because you've been taken care of before, then it just calms everything down. So Project House, feel like I'm going to be way over budget, been stressing about the budget. And this morning I get this message, and I'm just going to own the message. It's like that you're going to, obviously you're going to get done, but it's going to be under budget and I don't need to worry about it.
Wow. That's good
And I'm
news.
like, okay, well then I'm just going to go with that, because that, I mean, even if I like hit the budget, I'm okay with that. But being $20,000 over, that would not be good.
Yeah, I mean, I had with our house, I had to gut it and everything, and the budget, the contractor could not meet the budget requirements of the bills, and so he says, "But I'll tell you what, in between me, you, and the lamppost, I'll write the budget, and we'll work something on the side," and which worked. No, nobody got defrauded, everything was fine. We were able to make the stuff, so it worked out, and so I guess. I admire you for doing this now, because I'm scared to do anything. Even though I said that, I know what I'll do when I do it. I got that all, but it's like, do I want to go out and do something new? I don't know. I'm kind of shell shocked. It's unfortunate because I was pretty dynamic before.
Well, and I think this is kind of spirit kind of pushing me. I wasn't sure, and this was what I was thinking, and then this turned up, and I'm like, there was no hesitation on my part to do this project. How's that? And I took that as a really good sign. But there's part of me that's like, wasn't sure I wanted to like leave a bunch of money in the bank, and I definitely do not feel comfortable investing in the stock market, and that's just me. And I was like, but you need to do something because you're getting close to retirement and you really don't have a retirement plan. And this would be a good choice. It would be a good choice, because it's going to become a rental property. And, and I live in a big old 2-story house and with a big old yard. And, I feel like there's going to come a time where I'm not going to want to live in this house anymore, or I can't really live in this house anymore. And this other house would be the perfect one. It's in the area I want to live. I like living in downtown. It's still downtown. It's 1 story, much smaller, nicer neighborhood, so it checked all the boxes for me.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess I'm encouraged to kind of to put back the, I don't know what the word is, spontaneity, because I'm getting pretty, going to work, coming home, getting ready to go to work, come home, getting ready, and then squeeze in the stuff going on the weekend, and getting kind of in a rut. And I think I'm getting a little encouraged to look inside on that to see what I could do.
Well, if you just sit there and say, what do I need to be doing now? Or what do I need to do to shift this energy, and just be open to the message you receive, then it's not really about you thinking about it. It's just being open to acknowledging the direction you're being taken on, the journey you're being taken on.
Yeah, I don't shuck my responsibility out onto the devil, right? But it seems like there is an external force that is keeping you from going to your internal source. It's kind of like it wants to keep you out here and worried and busy and all that stuff. I think that's kind of what's falling through, and not only me, but everybody. So I think I'm going to really
Well, and again, to me, that's why I've been just spending so much time about focusing inward, because the ego's job is to keep you busy and all this. And I got the nice house and I got this and I'm worried about this because the ego controls the conscious mind and the subconscious mind and it keeps you out there. But in Kabbalah, the more you are out there, so they call, and I don't pronounce this right, it's either Kelipata, Kalupa, or I call it Chalupas because I have no phonics skills. And the further you get from source, if you get more shells, kind of like the Russian nesting dolls, and you get more and more shells. And as these shells build up, the further you become from source and the more ego driven you become. And that you heard that. And so by paying attention to the inside, it gives you the opportunity to let go of all of those shells and just be you in the energy. I mean, not that I can say that I'm in it every day, 24/7, but it is my goal. It is the number one thing that is important to me. And everything else has become secondary.
yeah, because with the ego, you think of somebody who is like arrogant, brash, selfish, whatever. You think ego that way, but the ego could also be where you're trying to take care of things, and you're still out there doing it out here. It might be, quote, you think it's good, your will that you're doing, but you're still doing it out here rather than in here.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when I hear the ego, I think of that part. I think because I can actually rationally analyze myself accurately in areas, and I know I'm not out there ego that way, but I end up taking on myself things. So that's good. Well, see, this is why we should talk more often.
But even the whole, well, I'm kind of in a rut, and I think the kind of in a rut is a piece of awareness where a piece of your ego said, well, I don't want to do that anymore, and I'm afraid to do that, but is that thinking really you? Or is that something that has been put onto you that needs to be addressed and paid attention to because that's not who you want to be or where you want your energy to vibrate?
I've learned that if I pay attention, I've learned to differentiate between inner guidance like and outer, because there's a different consistency to it. It's almost like it almost becomes tactile, right? And also when I'm thinking out here, there's this kind of swirl. But times that I've actually gotten on my back, literally, and said like, I got nothing. At that point, boom, comes right out here, and it's like, no question, it's solid. It doesn't mean I believe it's going to happen, but there is this do it. And when I follow those moments, it's worked out. The trouble is
Always.
those moments usually come when I'm on my back, literally or otherwise, and I need to have that more normal type of a thing.
And that's why I'm saying it's really about the practice so that it can become more part of your life. And for the listeners, the way I like to explain it in kind of a very simplistic way. So if it's the ego talking, the ego is going, hey, you need to do a webpage. Hey, you need to have a radio show. If you do these things, you're going to be great and you're going to make $1 million, blah, 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 blah. That's the ego. When it's spirit, when it's God communicating to you, it will say, and this is no lie, this is when I did my radio show, it said, it's time. And I was like, okay, time for what? And it said, to do a radio show. And I'm like, what the heck? I don't want to do a radio show. But when it's spirit, it's usually a little baby sentence, a couple of words, and it's very direct. And it doesn't try to talk you into it. It's like it just gives you a suggestion. Hey, do this. And you can choose to do it, or you can choose to not listen to yourself or spirit or whatever, whoever you want to tie it to.
Yeah.
Now you know everything.
Still, yeah, it's still small voice. That's the old thing from, was it
Yeah.
Ezekiel? Still small voice. All the
Hmm.
whirlwind gets in the way.
But
So,
that still small voice always comes in a word, phrase. It's never, it never will try to talk you into something. If there's something in your mind trying to talk you into something or justify something, it's the ego, always. Because even in your moments, it's like, oh, we'll do this. And you're like, and there's a sense of peace that comes with it. And you're like, oh, okay.
mhm.
And, again, you can choose to do it or not. And I guess I've just kind of taken it where I get those messages, and I look for them daily. I mean, maybe not daily, but and not just pulling it out when my life's in the crapper, and I'm using it to guide things on a more regular basis. How's that?
That sounds good, and I think that'll be a good time here. We're getting close to the end, and again, I appreciate you coming by. We'll do this more often now that I got this apparently set up. No one is
All
yelling
righty.
at me, so I guess it's working. This could be something we could do more often. Congratulations on your book. I'm definitely going to. If I ordered that, can I get it officially autographed by yourself to match my
You would have
collection?
to order it through my webpage
Of course.
and obviously Amazon.
I have when I get done with this, I got a whole list of links that I got for all your goodies that I'm going to put in the bottom, so then people can go directly to you for books and movies and readings and whatever. I got your Facebook page and whatnot, so it'll be all there. And again,
It,
thanks for stopping by.
thanks. We need to talk. It has been like way too long. So you were talking that we're friends outside. Okay, so for the listeners, no lie. It was a conversation. I drove through 5 states with the phone. This is before I had earbuds, with the phone on the charger around my neck, hanging, so I can hear it.
Uh, well, it's good to have someone to talk to who's got a lot of stuff to talk about. It's not, hey, did you
Hmm.
see the latest TV show type thing? I don't like that stuff. You're deep and yet you're still light. So keep being you. I appreciate
Thank you. That's all I got.
it. That's good, Dr. Rita Louise. We will put up all the information on the website on this and so forth. Again, reminding that the Spreaker thing's coming to an end. I think I'll put the audio of this up there, but just stay feet-to-the-fire-radio.com. I can't post that on Facebook. They've banned my website because I'm just this evil person. feet-to-the-fire-radio.com, that's the way to go. And on there, it'll have links to Rumble and Facebook, all the stuff I got on there. So and we'll have all the things underneath this for Dr. Rita. So let me hit the magic exit button, and we will see you next time.
Well, that was fun.